Okay, let me prelude the game which I'm about to video annotate with this picture I had from the Barnet Chess Club site. This was Fischer versus Petrosian. Petrosian's just before the start of the game. He's looking, maybe that's board one over there, I don't know. The USSR had a number of formidable players on their team, including many past world champions. So in the front row seated, we have Tigran Petrosian, we have Mikhail Tal, Boris Spassky, Mikhail Botvinnik, Vasily Smyslov. Okay, so a pretty strong team, and they narrowly won against the rest of the world in this classic 1970 match. So let's go back to 1970, that rest of the world match where Fischer was playing on board 2. Okay, he volunteered, but after I think he said he should have his head examined. But he was playing Tigran Petrosian, who's very dangerous, and he left Bent Larsen to play Spassky on board 1. But Petrosian, very solid player. Fischer kicked off with e4, and Tigran played the Caro-Kann, rock-solid the Caro-Kann. After d4, d5, we saw e takes, which I'm playing a lot in blitz, but I'm automatically now playing the Panov-Botvinnik attack. Okay, it's got a nice name to it. It sounds like an attacking idea, Panov-Botvinnik, but it's a bit loose thing for the d4 pawn when you play c4. And it's got various ideas, not just going for the king, but also establishing a queenside pawn majority sometimes. These three, you know, once c5 comes in against these two, sometimes and a bind on e5. There's various ideas in the Panov-Botvinnik, but I don't usually even consider this system which Fischer played. But first, it's not actually moving the c-pawn at all. It's actually moving the bishop first to d3. Okay, so it's leaving black guessing, actually. Will c4 be played when black's, you know, not quite ready for it? Because it's still kind of a potentially playable move. Okay, Tigran played knight c6. So attacking that d4 pawn, putting a bit of pressure immediately. And now instead of c4, which actually would lose a tempo anyway, because the bishop's already moved, you know, say d takes, Fischer might, you know, that line, you know, doesn't look too hot. So c3 is the idea. So what does c3 do? I've tried to illustrate graphically. There's an outpost square potentially on e5. Black's got potentially an outpost on c4 on the semi-open c file. So it's an interesting pawn structure here. Can White exert, you know, more and more pressure on e5 in particular with that semi-open e file later? And can that be used as a basis for an attack? You know, overprotection, Nimzovich style, overprotection of a key central point, a strong point. e5 would be the strong point here. That's interesting. And also, you know, is black threatening to liberate at any time with e5? Well, actually, after knight f6, just in case there's an implication of e5 now, and also it does look like a logical move to clamp down on the dark squares anyway. Fischer played bishop f4. Okay, so it's not just against, you know, e5, but just generally it looks like a nice positional move. Okay, so now a kind of non-stereotypical move is played by Tigran, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is called the Gerlingais variation. I think it's very, very solid g6. I think I've been playing this as black. If I have this sort of position, you just fianchetto that bishop, and then maybe, you know, this would be okay for black. But the problem with this, it doesn't really offer black clear counterplay breaks. I mean, later, okay, there might be a minority attack later, and use that semi-open c file. Okay, but it's a solid choice anyway, but this seems very interesting, this bishop g4. But does it suffer from the drawback of the b7 being slightly weakened? I mean, this is all opening theory anyway. Queen b3, hitting b7, and now black plays knight a5, protecting b7. And, okay, so there's check, bishop d7, and after all this, the queen goes back to c2. So strengthening control of this diagonal, tactically, you know, maybe tying down this knight to try and avoid knight h5s. If black wants to play knight h5, like in the game, he actually ended up playing h6, because black actually doesn't want white to have this grip on this diagonal, on these dark squares, necessarily. So e6, also another mission accomplished by this check, dragging that bishop back behind the pawn chain, behind its own pawns. But can the bishop be used there for queen b6, exchange off this bishop, weaken white's light squares a bit? So maybe Tigran factored that in. He didn't think this was that bad, this variation. So queen b6, and now we see the move a4. Now a4 has its own concessions as well. It slightly weakens b3 and you know, by implication c4 a little bit as well. Okay, and black actually grabs onto that fact with rook c8. So although white did stop that exchange of bishops, you know, the other concessions now, this c4 square versus this e5 square. So it's a battle of strategic, you know, strong point squares here. So knight bd2. And now apparently in more recent games, knight c4 is being played actually, and this kind of continuation, white giving up that, but the c4 pawn later proving to be a liability in one or two games. Okay, but Tigran actually he humbly retreats that, and he's threatening now knight b4, using that pin on c3 to sneakily grab that light square bishop. Of course, Fischer does something about that prophylaxis move, queen b1. Okay, and now black's really not content with this dark square control. Doesn't want to give Fischer what he wants here, and maybe, you know, there'll be h3 later, so the bishop can even be tucked on h2. So if this bishop is not wanted on f4, this is the time to do something about it, and that's possibly why Petrosian chose knight h5. But now, after bishop e3, various tactical implications here. You see, the knight is actually a potential tactical target with g4, and initially I thought, well, you know, maybe f5 and sort of kind of stonewall with bishop d6. e5 is not going to be a problem square if black's got enough pressure on e5. But the problem here, I think, is that white could actually gambit, not humbly play g3, but could actually play like g4, and this kind of variation looks kind of tricky. So kind of like a gambit against the Dutch defence, kind of Staunton type gambit, and it looks fairly dangerous, this f-file pressure. Even if black got in e4, you know, white could even like consider sacking a piece. So this is a strange line I looked at earlier, and white has a lot of pressure for the piece and the f and e files, and black's king safety is a bit in question, and it's difficult to chase back this knight because of g6. So there'll be a lot of compensation in this kind of variation. So all kicking off with g4, if there was this seemingly logical f5, which would sort of further justify, you know, getting the knight out of the way of the f pawn. But no, Petrosian actually plays, Tigran plays h6. Okay, and also, you know, maybe, you know, he didn't want bishop h7s if he's going to castle, prepared to castle kingside. But now knight e5 carries with it a lot of pressure. So knight takes e5, d takes would seem, you know, why isn't that is it that bad? But it is actually in some lines, because now there's a threat of g4 trapping the knight. Okay, so black gets in this bishop c5, but here white can play a5, and now knight f3, because black was also hitting e5 just then, and he's really is threatening like g4. This knight's out of the game at the moment. So say bishop takes fe, and now castles, and now here is the time where g4 and white would be better. Okay, you know, winning a piece, but you know, black would get some compensation with f6, but it would still be going down a piece. So this line doesn't look too hot with knight takes e5. Now the thing is, okay, this humble treat now, you know, Fischer's really won the opening, I think, at this stage. He's got this nice outpost square. He's really used that semi-open file and this key strategic point in particular. So h3 now, preventing any knight g4s. He's starting to get an iron grip on the position, a bit like Petrosian's bear hug in the King's Engine a few years earlier. So after castles, Petrosian didn't really fancy just routinely castling kingside. Okay, he's not losing a piece immediately to knight d7, knight's protecting d7. But after f4, this doesn't look particularly pleasant. There's huge pressure on the diagonal. This knight's acting as a Pillsbury bind type thing. And okay, is f4 actually even the best move? Because I'm just spotting, actually, if f4 was played, maybe there is knight takes and bishop e5, because this bishop's a tactical vulnerability. So in this position, let's just check this position out of curiosity. Is there something better? I don't think f4's possibly it's not right. Okay, so not f4. Okay, white could just keep the grip, because recommending maybe knight d f3, keep that grip on e5 with an advantage. Okay, so for whatever reason, Petrosian, maybe he likes provocation. He's a bit like Korchnoi. Maybe, you know, Korchnoi and Petrosian, they're learning from Lasker. This idea, putting your position on the brink, encouraging the opponent to be overexcited, try and get the opponent's nerves to be shattered during the game through provocation, sheer provocation, and tension, and maybe overcalculation and all that sort of thing. So psychologically, King f8, like waving the red flag to the ball.